All right, that works. I'm excited. That is good. Okay. All right. Yeah, Matt's gonna be a couple minutes. I was really excited about that. Wanted to mess around with it. I guess I put the volume in separately because it didn't seem like it was working. Like the countdown video works. So I'm gonna mess around with it, but yeah, working on new stuff, trying to make this a little bit more professional. I mean, coming to you live from the inside of the Buffalo Sabres arena, so pretty professional stuff. We love to see it. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest. These $3 drafts, like Matt is sleeping on them. They are unbelievable. Like people are they're barbarians. I mean, they should be put in jail. It's really really cool to see. Just like new. I mean, the thing is, they're just new people. They don't know what they're doing. Way more auto drafters, a lot more just nonsense, and I absolutely love it. I'm just going to check my audio quick. Audio's good. Camera's good. Okay, I think we're good. I had bit of an issue right before we started. I was a minute late, and it right now it's telling me my Wi-Fi is a little bit trash again. But Matt's going to be here in a minute. We're going to run through the news and notes. We're going to get right into a draft. I don't think there's really all that much more. I'm working on a lot of videos right now. The ranking stuff is coming, and then I'm working on the part 2, the Metro division. I have like all the graphics done. I just haven't organized it yet, and I'm writing my script because I want them to be good. So I'm really excited about this. Take a peek behind the curtain. I think everything's done. I think besides Washington, and then I just got to move the pieces around. But they're done. So we're gonna move on to the Metro. I'm hoping to have that out same time, like a week. Give every one of them a week. So Thursday to get the part 2 out, and then the following Thursday to get part 3, which will be the Central and then the Pacific. So yeah, we're rocking and rolling. Let's take a peek. Is it really that bad? It's I don't understand it. Honestly, it's Spectrum. I swear Spectrum is the worst internet provider in the world. And that was like the only option I had. So it's brutal. It is brutal. It's in and out. I don't like right now it's perfect, full strength. Now it's back to 1. It just happens. There's nothing I can do. But hold on, let's pull this up quick. Oh yeah. We got the graphics. Look at these. I mean, they're cooking. They're cooking. So yeah, the next one I just got to edit and get the next. Yeah, why don't I'll just start talking about some of the news and notes. I know Matt's gonna have a lot of takes. We have kind of a rundown, but I'll get to a couple of the really tangential things that are just fun and interesting, and things that I don't think he'll mind me kind of covering. But he should be here at probably any minute. But there was a ton of news this week. Like sometimes it's like funny that we get into these things and we're like, oh, like we'll talk about some nonsense, but a couple things that are actually really relevant, some things that aren't that relevant. We'll start with the Beniers extension. I think that's more of just like some people will get into drafting him. I don't know if that means anything. Like he didn't change as a player, but certainly giving him $7 million is like something to note. Like they clearly value him as an elite top 6 player or your first center, your second center. So obviously hiring Bilesma and getting rid of Hackstall is probably directly correlated to wanting Beniers and getting the most out of him. So I think there's probably better options almost always, but as things continue to get sharper and like we're seeing players that are just better than Beniers go, eventually we'll probably reach a point where Beniers is more optimal. And in drafts where we're getting a lot of new people that are drafting 5, 6 centers, you may end up having to scrub the bottom of the barrel. And I don't think Beniers is the worst pick in the world, but that is certainly happening, especially in your $3 drafts. You're seeing, I mean, I've seen 7 centers, I'm pretty sure, in some of those. So yeah, I mean, you're getting a top 6 center, you're getting power play 1. What more can you really ask for other than a guy that could shoot? So yeah, I don't think it's like you're getting a guy that's clearly super relevant, but I do think in deeper drafts, you're going to want to take a look at Matt Beniers and like just know what they're doing here. Cody Ceci goes to the Sharks. I mean, he's bad, but he'll start on the Sharks. He's definitely not relevant in any format. I just find it interesting that San Jose gave a lifeline to Edmonton. It seems weird, but then again, there's could be more to the story. There might be more behind it that we just don't know yet. And maybe eventually we'll see that come to fruition. But that is quite a rescue for a situation that could have been quite dire. They're trying to re-sign Draisaitl. Draisaitl's obviously not going to take peanuts. He wants what he's worth, which, in my opinion, is probably less than he's going to get, but he is still incredibly good. Therefore, the St. Louis Blues said, here you go, make a move. You're either going to be worse next year and you didn't win the cup, or you're going to have to make a major move. And instead of, really being damaged at all, they get, again, they just get completely bailed out. I don't understand it from any perspective other than there's got to be more to it. I just don't know. I mean, yeah, 3.25 million in space is just handed back for a player that really isn't an asset. I makes no sense. I don't know why you wouldn't punish the Oilers. They're the cream of the crop and they're not going anywhere. It's not like it's like, oh, by the time the Sharks are good, the Oilers are going to be bad. Obviously, they're right there. I mean, they're going to be there until McDavid retires, which is no time soon. So, no idea. But with that being said, not relevant for this. I don't think Matt's going to have too much to say other than like maybe a small take on it if he wants to touch on it. Podkolzin goes to Edmonton to fill Dylan Holloway in some capacity. Podkolzin's kind of been trending towards a defensive player, which is not what his prospect pedigree was to be. I don't think he's relevant at all. I do worry maybe about Arvidsson a touch more. Like, it kind of feels like you could find someone to just scrape the bottom of the barrel if you needed to, and they feel like they clearly don't have it with Holloway going out the door. So I think it's a bit of insurance, not a ton. God, I have to go to Puckpedia now, don't I? Jesus. I clicked on Cat Friendly, rest in peace. But it is going to be interesting. I mean, what is going to happen with this Oilers top six is going to be important to track. I don't know. I mean, I'm becoming more hesitant on Arvidsson, and this just feels like a move that is a bit more insurance. Like, they just could not move forward with Evander Kane. Obviously going to miss time, right? Let's just start there. Let's just say it right off the bat. Like, Evander Kane's not going to start the year, but clearly not going to miss the entire season, and just they can't find a way to make that work. So they needed someone that can mix in that top nine. I don't know. Yeah, I haven't looked at the lobby at all, actually. I was at least going to wait till Matt got here before I jumped in, but you know what? What's it going to hurt? Let's take a peek. I'm just gonna do it on my phone first because I'm not playing the let's just see. What are we looking at? The not finding me. It's 6 more right now. So okay, yeah, 5 of 12 down to 6 of 12. You know what? Why don't I just share my screen? I'll just show you what I'm looking at instead of. So yeah, just looking at Puckpedia right now, looking at what the Oilers are. Kind of just we'll run through a few of these. But Podkolzin, not relevant at all. I mean, he did seem to be a guy that could be a fantasy asset. It just didn't happen, unfortunately. I do think he has a good shot, but he definitely will. It's just not going to happen. Tough break. Obviously, we're going to save the Line A trade. I'd like to save Demko, Broberg, Holloway. Askarov while we wait for Matt. As for a trade out of Nashville, they put cold water on it. I'm not really buying. I mean, I think he wants out. I think that is a, oh no, we're not desperate. This is an incredibly good prospect that has, a lot to offer in a trade, but has not really been spectacular at the AHL level. I've seen, again, the pedigree versus the actual is kind of what we're looking at here in Askarov. Goalies are really tough to project. We've seen goalies like Linus Ullmark, for example, was a guy that was like, maybe this could be a player. AHL was hit or miss. It kind of took off. He comes to Buffalo. It's like, can he be an NHL starter? Yes, we think. And then goes to Boston and absolutely, goes insane. So, like, I find that to be pretty crazy that, like, it's like he's 22 years old. This is about the time where you think he can start to push for an NHL position, but, like, he can't be the backup in Nashville. I mean, that just kind of feels crazy to me, right? Like, where is he going to go and start? I just don't know if there's a team that makes actual sense for him to start. Like, 9-11 is fine, but it's not unbelievable. It's not like, you know what I mean? Like that like plenty of goalies have above a 9-11 save percentage and are not on as good of teams as Milwaukee's been. Has been a team that's been close to the Calder Cup. So I think he's good, but he hasn't proven that he can handle it at the NHL level. I mean, he's only had a couple starts, so it is what it is. But all that being said, Matt's joining us right now. I do find it interesting that he's an interesting. This is actually somewhat fantasy relevant. Let me add Matt. Oh, okay. Matt, you here?
I am here.
We'll just continue onward with Askarov. So it's like the bull case is. Oh, I thought the draft started for a second. I was like, oh crap. No, we still need 4 more, Matt, by the way. The bull case on Askarov would be what in this offseason? Like to draft him.
I can't. I mean, I don't know. Honestly, it'd be a team like Vegas trading Aiden Hill or something and getting him. Like, I can't really picture a different scenario where Askarov, goes into a position to take over 40 to 45 starts. Like, I can't really think of many teams that would be in the position to do such a thing. Now, if like San Jose shows up and says, yeah, let's go get our goalie of the future, yeah, that probably changes things a little bit because, yeah, he could get 50 starts there, but like, I don't think that's happening.
Are you
so
in the
I
lobby,
think
by
this
the
is
way?
like,
It's 2 more. Just want to make sure.
What's that?
2 more, by the way, if you're not in the lobby.
I'm in.
Okay.
Yeah, the Kings are an interesting one. I just don't think the Kings would. I don't think the Kings would trade for a rookie and make him their starter. Like he would. Sure, he could be their backup. Like Big Save Dave. Goes.
That's kind of
like,
my point, though. I was making before you joined, though. It's like he goes to be a backup somewhere else. Well, he probably could have been the backup in Nashville. Like if they're saying that he is not ready to be the backup, that doesn't make me feel very good because they have Matt Murray as the backup, I think.
No, it's Wedgwood.
Like, never mind. Wedgwood.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think it can like there's no bull case that results in him starting for a contender like that. That just and frankly, yeah, it's cool to get a goalie in the last round, but like I would much rather get a goalie who has a significant chance at 50 starts, and I don't see that in virtually any scenario. Like I don't know. It's a really tough spot. Nashville put themselves in this pickle. Like Askarov is not in a, he's definitely been put in a tough spot. It's not like he's acting too out of line, but also it's really hard to see. Based on his track record, he has 2 years of playing AHL hockey, and he's been fine. He's not been Dustin Wolf, who's knocked down the door 3 years in a row and said, "I'm here, I'm ready," by being the league's best goalie. Like that has not happened with Askarov. You're betting on tools, you're betting on pedigree. You haven't seen it in the results. So like it's really tough for me to buy him in any sort of facet fantasy wise. Like it's just not what I'm doing at all. I think even if he's traded, like he's just not going to a place to start. Yeah, like Colorado. That's just not like Colorado's not trading for him and giving him 50 starts. Like he will get maybe 30 starts, which like he's not useful for best buck. So I don't know. Yeah, that's certainly an interesting one. Did you cover any of the other news items of the day? I see a ton of comments here.
We have a lot of comments. We have more to cover. The draft just started. So
yep.
You are in the 6. I am in the 10. Why don't we? Yeah, we'll just keep going. I mean, the beginning of drafts aren't all that interesting, really. Like maybe we'll see something that's interesting. But all I covered so far was the Cody Ceci trade. If you had any thoughts on that at all, I just kind of went over that. It's kind of a rescue from Greer for no reason. I don't really get why you do that. I went over Mark Golzin a little bit. That makes me a little bit hesitant on like how healthy Arvidsson is, but I guess maybe it's not as bad as I thought. Like he's not really the same player, but I don't know. It's like they couldn't let Holloway go. Like they had to get someone to fill that spot, and like it feels like more insurance than it is an actual like absolute need. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you mentioned two spots. CC doesn't matter. Like, yeah, it's strange a little bit. I don't know. I'm wondering how many teams were in the in the realm of like taking on CC's contract? Like was Columbus looking to, do this if they were going to ship Line A out? Was Arizona going to just take on an NHL defenseman? Like were teams like that sort of driving the price down, or did Mike Greer jump at the opportunity to help out, like Stan Bowman just for, God knows what reason? Because I don't think we'll ever know the answer, but I think that, it strikes me as that's almost indefensible to the point where I'm wondering if it's either just terrible management, which, all Mike Greer's done is like tear the team down. Doesn't take too much talent to do that. Or that there's some sort of, dynamic at play market wise that drove the price and drove the deal to happen. Because it would have certainly been preferable to see them quiver for a bit.
Yeah, yeah. Either there is a market there and I don't understand that market, or there wasn't, and Mike Greer gave a bailout package we haven't seen. And why? I try to think of the last time this happened in the NHL where someone truly just bailed out a division team. I mean, it's not like I say rivalry, but like that's in their division, and like Edmonton's not going anywhere. The other thing I mentioned was the Beniers resigning quickly. Just like it's sort of like as more of the slappies join, does Beniers become more relevant? You're in a draft where 2 people take 5 centers. They obviously just made a major commitment. They get Bilesma. Maybe there's more room, but like, is he going to change as a player? Is my concern, and the answer is probably no. And any thoughts on that, or just sort of
the contract is honestly, I don't think the contract is very risky at all. Like I would have been more, I guess, surprised if the number had been like in the 8s. Then I would have kind of been like, oh, like, okay, that's, like they see something more in him. Because honestly, if Matt Beniers is what he is right now, where it's, really good 2-way player, but not really an offensive dynamo, he's going to pretty much pay off a $7 million price tag over the next 7 years. Like you don't need to factor in that much improvement, that much fantasy, like relevance, developing into, say, a point a game, 95 point player for that deal to be worth it. So it comes with a little bit of sticker shock, but I don't think it changes anything from a fantasy outlook standpoint. I still think Shane Wright's their only chance that are truly fantasy game breaker type center. And I'm not interested in Matt Beniers for this season either.
Okay. So those were the couple things I covered while you were gone. Would you rather get in? Why don't we go in order of probably the biggest to the smallest? Ryan Johansson's probably next as far as interesting. It's not really best book relevant, but certainly going to be a really interesting situation. I don't know. I mean, it sounds as if the Flyers are saying you weren't actually hurt. You didn't show up to play. They traded real assets for him. I mean, they actually give up something in that deal. I just, it's weird, but not sure if there's much to really glean from it and anything that we're really supposed to discuss. But did you have any thoughts?
My initial thought was, oh, that's the guy who got traded to Philly and said, fuck it, I'm not showing up. And they're like, yeah, we don't like that. So
the Patrick Berglund, if you would.
The interesting part was that the agent for Johansson is the same agent as Cutter Gauthier. Probably just coincidence, but very funny. Maybe Kevin Hayes is to blame for this too.
His fingerprints are all over it. I mean, it's one of those things where you're sitting there and you're just like, is this Mike Richards? Is this Evander Kane? Or is this something else? And it does feel like it's something else. Definitely more Patrick Berglund, except he's saying, no, I'm not actually Patrick Berglund. I actually was too hurt. And that just seems like an insane thing to like have a differing opinion on. Like you think about the Jack Eichel situation and it's like, oh, this player couldn't get the surgery he wanted. Like they knew that the vast difference in like the medical influence from one team to another. I mean, what do I know? Seems crazy. And it's going to be interesting how that sorts out, but only in hockey, baby. Ready to talk Broberg and Holloway over to St. Louis?
Sure. I'm just regretting my Hellebuck pick. I definitely should have taken Caulfield or Kempe. Because I was like, I have the Kaprizov, so many times over, and I'm just sort of like, I take him with Reinhart and Marner, and I should have just dipped down into Connor Kempe. I sort of got lost in the sauce of actually maybe Connor, maybe Count has other. No, he takes Kyle Connor.
Connor or Kempe are fine. I was gonna say you kind of have two options at least.
Yeah,
but
see, like I'm pretty worried about this room becoming an avalanche, so I'm just gonna grab Kempe here. I think I might have said Kempe, and I meant Caulfield or Ovi. But yeah, anyway,
this leads us right into the next guy, who is almost the next guy at ADP, Thatcher Demko. Did you watch? I watched the whole 4.5 minute video that was sort of the genesis of the conversation. Did you watch it all or no?
No, I'm not sure. I don't know what you're talking about.
Sportsnet, Vancouver radio.
Didn't they fire everyone? Okay.
It was Sportsnet. I don't know honestly exactly where it was out of, to be honest, but they had a Vancouver guy on. That Vancouver guy was basically, and again, I think it got blown out of proportion. He was basically saying, and again, from my perspective, was that Demko, who I didn't take there, I did go with Vasilevsky because I do think there is some concern, but he was saying that the situation had always been a bit ambiguous, like what actually was happening, where this injury was going, how his rehab was starting, and that they had real conversations around, do we spend some of our cap to bring back the Smith if he's at 100%? And it seemed like that had been kind of, okay, nope, we're going to let the Smith go. We're good with Shelovs. We're good with maybe bringing in one more guy or bringing in a PTO if needed. And now there's this, overarching, maybe lingering concern that he's still not ready and it's almost training camp. That's how it felt to me. But not there's no way he's starting the season. It's more of is he going to be 100% to go right off the rip, right? Is he going to be ready to go right into massive starting? And I think that got blown out of proportion, but
yeah,
that's not really for me to say.
Yeah, I think the main issue is that there is no news. I mean, it's a pretty specific question, and to get no answer is obviously highly concerning. So it's hard to know how hard you're pressing. Are you talking to the GM? Are you talking to the intern who brings coffee? There's all sorts of reporting inside stuff that we just have no idea. But the fact that the question's being asked and there's just apparently no answer being given, it smells pretty fishy. I don't think that's a good sign.
No, it's not a good sign. I don't think there's no concern. I just think the concern got immediately because some organizations are just quiet. And one of the big things about Vancouver, and this was talked about a lot on 32 Thoughts, with all of the changing of the guard and all this stuff, is they wanted things to be quieter. Things were so loud in Vancouver all the time. They felt affecting players on the team. And when this Demko thing happened, there was this ACL tear injury potential kind of out there. And you're saying, no one squashed it, but it kind of felt like this was an organizational push more than, in my opinion, again, but we'll see. Then they're being a little shady over there. It's you can be. You don't have to put everything out there. You don't have to do that. And the fact that they're saying rehab hasn't been as fast as they would like makes me think that there's still rehab. They're putting him into positions to play.
Yeah. What's the opposite of the boy who cried wolf, though? Because it was all the water carriers said, "Oh, Demko is going to be back for round 3, guys. Don't worry, he's fine."
Yeah.
And then the reporting, well, actually, he has a torn ACL. Civ had that, and there was a ton of hoopla about that, and obviously nothing ever got confirmed.
Yeah,
but if that's the initial report, I don't know what you're saying. Sorry, what?
Well, I feel like that wasn't true, and I don't know. I mean, where she got that from, and I'm not going to say
but
she's better than me, but
okay, that's the problem. If that's not true, then what's the case? And everything we've seen is actually it's worse than what they're saying, because he was supposed to be back at practice during the playoffs. He wasn't. He was supposed to be back for round 3. Obviously, we didn't find out because they lost in game 7, but we just kept pushing the goalposts back. And when your initial status is torn ACL, I don't know how you can rule that out at this point. Like, we just have no information, and that's something where if that occurred, he's not back until January at the absolute earliest. And like, that's not a big deal for Vancouver, who should be a playoff team even without Demko for the first 30 something games. But that's a death knell for your best puck team. So like, I don't, yeah, they're not incentivized to give us that information, but in an information game, I just think that's really important to maybe not figure out, but at least to keep in mind and draft accordingly, because yeah, it'll suck to not have access to that guy. But let's be honest, goalies are goalies. Why not just take a guy on a similar team with a similar workload who is definitely healthy? Like, it's not like we're getting a huge discount on Demko right now. So maybe over the next few weeks it'll happen. I doubt it. People aren't really plugged in. People are just going to click goalies, click names, whatever. Who cares? But yeah, I'm going to pretty much continue to stay away from Demko. I looked. I have 1 share in my first 25 drafts. So go me. Good job. I did it.
You're not going to want to hear the number I have, because I've been drafting a ton of him.
Well, I mean, yes,
highest...
I love to hear the number you have, because that means there's fewer DJ teams to beat in the playoffs.
My highest drafted goalie.
Yeah, no, I know.
So maybe a bit of me projecting. But I mean, it's just like the quote. I just was reading one of the quotes, and it's unclear if he had off-season surgery. It's like, what? Like, I just don't understand. It just, to me, it's just like, it doesn't, that almost like doesn't make, it's like they're just grasping for straws, it feels like, again. But I really want him to be healthy, so that is what it is. I don't know.
Okay,
I mean, and reading a couple other things, like, he was on the ice before Game 6. Like, they went to Game 7. He was on the ice, backing up, skating, taking pucks. I don't know. I don't know
here auto drafting, because we're totally screwed if he is.
Yes, he is.
Okay, great. 100%. We are completely screwed.
I was actually going to take Crosby on the bring back at that point. I was almost going to take him there, but I was like, oh boy, I really don't want to do that.
Yeah. So my friends, we have reached the Tim Stützle cliff.
Well,
we are fighting upstream now.
Man, I don't want to take Dobson, but I don't have to. Never mind. God is taking Noah Dobson. Oh man, I can wait. I was probably not. I was really thinking I really want Konechny here. Like, I feel like there's a pretty big cliff after Konechny. I honestly think Fiala is Jarvis are the end of it. Like, then it gets pretty. It's not as crispy. But yeah, I will take Konechny over those two. I think Fiala is just a guy that absolutely should be going a bit earlier, but we'll see. There's more offseason stuff to get to. There was a question in here. We'll get to Tom Olson's question on Adrian Hopkins. 82.5. I didn't really look at his point total yet. I didn't think to look him up, I guess. But definitely a guy that, yeah, like, I mean, the year before he had like 100 and something, right? I mean, I don't remember.
Yeah, it's just the players you play with, and it seems like they're going away from RNH as a center. So, maybe now that they traded McLeod, he exits the top 6 and centers the third line, in which case, yeah, that's an auto smash. But if he's alongside McDavid, it's tough. It's tough to really rule out.
It's a wait and see. The market will not adjust as fast as we'll know if that's a possibility. So Broberg Holloway deals are ones that we didn't really get into too much, but it's not really relevant for this. Like,
yeah, Broberg isn't pretty much whatsoever. I don't, like Dylan Holloway. I actually, was it on stream? I don't know. I think it was on stream. I might have taken Dylan Holloway just to sort of like a thought, a thought of like, okay, so last round wing, you're obviously not giving up a ton based on the options that we have and sort of the information that we currently have. And it's certainly really thin, but I think the argument for Holloway is that Pavel Buchnevich looks like he's going to settle in as the second line center in St. Louis this year. That's the way they've been talking about it all off season. Jake Neighbors sticks on the top line with Thomas and Kyrou. And if that's the case, yeah, Dylan Holloway does not have power play 1 upside, so like that's going to be a guy I probably take maybe 2 or 3 times and then just stop until we get, actual good information. But he's the sort of player who on a week-to-week basis should, with 17, 18 minutes of ice time, pick up hits, pick up shots. Like he profiles as a decent fantasy player, and obviously he's young enough and flash some upside alongside Draisaitl that like if Buchnevich is his center and they sort of develop that chemistry, you could see a tangible, you could see a tad of upside. Certainly more of a player I'd be interested in some of the deeper formats, like I don't even know what else exists out there these days. But if you're in, a standard season long league where you have a bench and, those benches are longer than the 16 players that we draft for best puck, that's certainly a player I think to keep in mind, especially once that value hits, because he was pretty good in that respect, I believe.
You
All
drafted
right.
her.
There are some D here, but I am just going to make sure I don't completely lose center. I really like Sebastian Aho, so let's just grab him, and now I can float on with my.
Did you get Jarvis?
Rest of my lineup.
Just wondering if you got Jarvis there, but I think that's pretty fair. Well, there goes Joseph Wool. See ya, buddy.
I did not realize I did not catch the Scott Skinner pick. That's funny. He starred someone, but already had Skinner starred.
Oh yeah, the star method does come for us all, and it can get you when you least expect it. I am excited to see who Billy Jones takes here, so I will. Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna take Fox to go with Panarin. That's just sort of gonna happen. COD is gonna start 3-1-3-0. You hate that, you love to see it. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that that number on Nugent Hopkins, like on paper, seems really strange. He was on the top line, but how glued was he to McDavid? I'd have to look into that. But I really haven't even thought about it. I've taken a look at a couple things, but I never even thought to look at a player I don't even like that much. I do think that's like it's really hard to find a scenario where I'm going to like him more than sort of the market seems to. Like the market, the NHL market in general is just brutal. So that under does seem pretty good. Other than that, we had 2 more pretty big moves, I believe. We had the Landeskog situation. Has the Landeskog skating video done anything that moved the needle at all?
I would say it probably should. I mean, I don't the skating video, whatever. I know you're sort of being a little facetious there, but if he does return,
he was literally
in the
skating.
first. Yeah, like if he does return in the first couple weeks of the season, I mean, that's basically who cares? Like if he misses the first 3 weeks, it's not that big a deal because he's a wing too. It's not even like he's taking up a center or D or goalie spot where like, you only have 3 of them theoretically, and there's just a bigger loss at that 0. Landeskog, it is interesting because we're sort of just automatically penciling in the Drouins, the Lekkonens to pick up that role, but there is clearly a vacuum available outside of McKinnon, Rantanen, and Makar. And, Landeskog certainly will get an opportunity. Is he capable, this soon after returning to do that? I don't know. That's sort of the, that's the $1 million question for sure. Layla knew that that Kemper was not going to get past me here. So I will.
Gustafsson may have just taken over Demko as my highest drafted goalie. Love the playoff schedule. I do. The hesitation on Gustafsson is, in my opinion, that Wallstead could take over. And if the Wild aren't very good, that means that Walt is taking over. So, like, in my opinion, if you're betting on Gustafsson, you're basically saying that Wallstead doesn't take over because, well, if he does, then Gustafsson died anyways. You know what I mean? But the final schedule is really good for Minnesota.
Marc-Andre Fleury exists too, and he's not going quietly. So I find the Gustafsson upside pretty limited personally versus I could see Kemper running off 3-start weeks like no other.
I like them both. I'm drafting a good bit of them both. When you're in the draft, I am unlikely to get both.
That is true.
Um,
That is true.
4-3-1. Yeah. Wait, does it mean 4-1-3?
Let's
That
see.
doesn't matter. Yeah, COD is.
Yeah,
Just go
the
to go to
4-1-3.
Cape Cod, and oh boy, yeah, that is. You just don't like to see it, you just don't want to see it. But if you're not going to be here, you're going to be in the badge room, just not paying attention. And then yeah, so Landeskog thing again. I agree with everything you're saying. Keep an eye on it. Last but not least
Yeah.
is definitely the Line A trade. I think that's everything.
Yeah, this is the big kahuna. There are people who are very, very into Patrick Laine now. Gotta say, I am not one of them. I think, and we've had a full conversation in the Discord. So if you're listening to this and are not in the MSB Discord, these sorts of conversations are great ways to spend your, say work hours. Hold on, let me make this pick here before we get more into things.
Yeah.
I
mean,
what is Mano gonna do?
Oh, I thought I was going to take Line A. That would have been.
Yeah, let's grab some Erik Karlsson action. Yeah, so
lacking defense there. So good pick.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just fine lacking defense until, until Sergachev. I will take Hanifin or Seth Jones as my first D, and I don't really care. I'm not that worried about it. But once Nate Chess went, I really had no reason to reach for McCann or Buchnevich either. So why not grab Erik Karlsson, who's awesome? The thing with Line A that really worries me is, yeah, it's great that he has a home now. There's no longer that question mark of will he be quote unquote in the lineup opening night. Obviously things can happen between now and then that change that, but right now he's going to be in the Montreal lineup on opening night. Great. That's definitely a positive versus where we were, a couple weeks ago when this sort of topic first started and Laine started to rise up the boards as people started to bet on his future landing spot. My problem is that in Montreal, he is simply not going to be their alpha scorer. They have Cole Caulfield, who is multidimensional in the way he scores goals. I've never seen anyone like Patrick Laine as far as his ability to beat goalies clean. Steven Stamkos is about as close as we can get in this current NHL, in the sense that if you aren't getting a clean look, Patrick Laine is not scoring. Like, it is truly remarkable how far out his heat map is as far as the goals he scores. Does that mean he won't get to the rough areas, pick up those dirty goals? I don't know. It's certainly, he's a player who came in. We knew what his skill set was. He wasn't going to win any Selkies. Like, it's not a surprise that this is who he became. But he's going to a landing spot where he's not going to be utilized with his most dominant weapon, in my opinion, which is his right-handed, left half wall, one-timer / wrist shot on the power play. If they move Cole Caulfield off of that role, I don't know what you're doing. Like, Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield can run a very good power play. And so what sort of that leads me into is, can Patrick Laine play the bumper on the power play one? I don't think he's not taking over the top line alongside Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. Like, that is Slafkovsky's job to lose. He profiles perfectly for the position. He gets dirty. He's got a nose for the net. Like, he's a really, really good player. This does not affect Slafkovsky at all, in my estimation. And so what it does is it means you have the bet on Kirby Dach to be a dominant second line center, and you have the bet on Patrick Laine being adaptable enough to play the bumper, a role that he has never played before in the NHL, on a team that we frankly have never seen have a useful bumper. It's the new hook from last year where, like, it's the Cole Caulfield show on this team. I just really don't see a role for him if that is anywhere worth a best puck pick. And so I understand the talent's there, and he's saying, oh, I want to score 40, 50 goals. I'm not happy with 30. But I would be shocked if he scored 30 goals, honestly, because I just don't think that there's enough around him to sort of elevate him and take advantage of his skill set. Is he going to add secondary scoring for this team? Abso-freaking-lutely. I just don't think it'll come in spikes. I don't think it'll come in a fantasy friendly way because he doesn't do anything but score goals. He doesn't get assists. He doesn't take shots. He doesn't get hits. Like you're just kind of up a creek without a paddle with him, I think. So that is my sort of rant against him. And yes, I'm on the clock. I don't know what to do. So let's just take a winger. That is what we do around here.
That is what we do around here. I don't think I completely differ from you entirely, but on the same token, like where he's going currently is fine. I don't have like if you told me, okay, your picks are, let's just look at it right now, like Zuccarello or Line. I think I'm going Line. You put Cutter Gauthier in there, probably going back to Cutter. Like it depends kind of where he's going, because I do agree, like the role, this is not the ideal outcome. The only good thing about Montreal is that there is not another top shooting player. And if Kirby Dach is what his pedigree said he could have been, I do find that there's, and again, like 30 goal upside is nothing to, because 30 goal upside means that if the PDO bender gets just right, he could Kuzmenko it. Like, why couldn't he Kuzmenko season from 2 years ago? The issue is obviously Cole Caulfield on the power play taking away some of that shot volume. But if the power play is really good, which it could be, I do think he's draftable. Like, there's no doubt he's not draftable. I just think that if you're taking him in the 120s over a lot of other players, you're probably doing it wrong. But I just think that winger is going to get to a point where it's like pretty correct. And he's definitely a guy that I'm going to be, I don't mind betting on. Like, just because of the goals, like that's how you win. I don't know. I'm going to dive into a little bit deeper. Like, who is another player on this team? It's Josh Anderson. It's probably the only other guy. Like, Josh Anderson's probably done.
Well, I don't even. Well, what is your argument about Josh Anderson? Like he's
like who is going to? Yeah, who's going to take away 5-on-5, like optimal 5-on-5 like power play shooting time? Like, no,
I guess it's who cares about 5-on-5 play unless you're betting on Kirby Dach to like. Trust me, I love Kirby Dach. I asked Cliffy like, can this be Kirby Dach's year? And he sort of, not poo-pooed it, but basically said like, I'm not sure that he's, going to take that next step that he was sort of showing and possibly having into last season. There's just only one alpha line, I think, in Montreal, and Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield are the two alphas there, and you're just not getting onto that line. And so, like, what are you doing taking at best the third best forward on the Montreal Canadiens? I don't know. And then you add Slavkovsky, who I think is definitely a better pick than Line. It's like, what are you doing taking the third best wing on the Montreal Canadiens? It requires a lot of projection to get him to a usable format. I just think the downside is so much greater with him than a lot of the players who, admittedly, I have used a lot of projection to get Cutter Gauthier, who is, we have not seen him score 40-something goals in the NHL like Line has. Like, we've not seen it. But I'm at least able to, in my mind, project him for a more central focus of his team's offense than I am for Line. And that's setting aside the fact that we've seen Line now for, I think, 5 straight years, basically not finish the complete season. And like, yeah, zeros, you can survive them. I don't have the same sort of available data that Leone did for NFL, where he proved that like getting zeros on your team was like the most surefire way to kill your playoff EV. But like, it's so easy for me to see a world where Line H just not playing in February. Like, I don't know. We just haven't seen him stay healthy for a year. So there's just a ton of risk here. And that's just not the sort of player that I want to target when I don't see the upside as likely as others do. And a lot of people certainly do see that upside. Like, there are a lot of people in the Discord having different takes, and by all means, have at it. You're going to get him at a cheaper price than his upside case will show. Like, he very well could be a 45 overall pick next year. And it'd be like, yeah, like that makes sense. He's that good at scoring goals.
Okay. Oh, I will say that I think he's draftable. I think it's probably around this spot and some him here, and it's totally fine. And
Yes.
I like this next question. The next two questions need to be answered. This one right here, I'm becoming very bullish on Marchenko. I'm getting quite a bit of him, which now that we say that, he'll be gone by the time I get a chance. But I think Marchenko is a smash at
Yeah,
ADP. Like, I think, again, like, it's pretty similar. Like, it's a better role. It's a similar, I think, like, the volume is the only concern with him, but it's not like it hasn't had spikes. So yeah, Marchenko's a really, really good end of the draft type of guy, for sure. But what do I project his stat line to be? I mean, again, like, what do you need it to be for him to reach his peak? It's like, I see a 30 goal scorer in him. I definitely do. So I would love to see if it comes together correctly. It's just, this team sucks.
I'm calling the Cy Young for Marchenko. 32 goals, 17 assists,
Yeah,
49 points, and I
he
don't know,
had
let's
that.
call it 200
He had that.
shots.
He had the most. I think he had like 17 goals, 0 assists, or something.
Yeah,
Remember
something
that?
like
Like, he
that.
had something egregious. So, like, yeah. Let's just get to this really quickly. Mr. King, you cannot survive one goalie. I would say it's very unlikely you're surviving two goalies.
The
Yeah.
So beyond just the fact that even drafting one goalie, obviously you don't want to do that. But if you get to the playoffs with three goalies, and let's say you take Dustin Wolf and a guy who gets hurt and a guy who's playing in the playoffs, and Dustin Wolf is sent down the AHL, and everyone's up in a tizzy because this wasn't supposed to happen. Whatever. Let's just go with it. The real problem is that if you make the first round of the playoffs, you have to advance to the second round. Like easy enough. So okay, you made it. Now what? Well, you're going to need a good score from your goalie to advance. There's not going to be that many good scores at goalie. So depending on how good your goalie is and how much he separates from the pack, obviously you want your goalie to do well. But once you get to the next round, guess what? A lot of people in the next round will have that really good goalie. So I think that there's a little bit of that cognitive dissonance of like, okay, if he's the goalie you needed to have, you're actually not going to want to just have that goalie on your team because now you've lost your leverage to elevate yourself above the field for the next round. Where this really comes into play, though, is in the finals, where let's say Logan Thompson, like last year, was the goalie you didn't really matter until you get to the finals week. I think he was maybe 5% owned in the final, or maybe even less than that. And he puts up like a 70-point week in week one. Well, all of a sudden you have this inside track to a massive profit that you simply just don't have access to if you have the goalie that is 60% owned, because that's how you got to the finals in the first place. So it's not quite as egregious as it's not quite as obvious as in, say, like the football playoff contest, where like if you have the quarterback that makes a Super Bowl, obviously he's going to be super owned. So you want, a different quarterback too, to sort of like leverage off of that. Ideally, like that's sort of the ideal scenario. But it's sort of similar to that mechanism where like just the ownership when it gets to the big money rounds is where you want to have some leverage, and having one goalie carry you the entire way through makes it super likely that that goalie carried other players with other leverage pieces of their roster through to the finals as well.
Yeah. That was quite a bit. Yeah. The 3-7. Oh, sorry, you were trying to grab something else. We're gonna say you can grab this first.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, what am I gonna be comfortable with? I guess I'm fine with getting 50-60% of a player. I had 50% Shea Theodore last year because I thought he was mispriced. I thought he had top 5D well within his range of outcomes, given the system and the player and the talent and everything else. It didn't happen. So like, yeah, would that have been better off sprinkling around some Uyghurs and some other pieces that wound up being the players you wanted to have? Sure. But I'm comfortable being wrong a lot because I think that my edge comes from things like that. But I know DJ has a bit of a different texture to this question.
I feel like it's a little bit like the players that have the $25,000 winning upside, and I think that a lot of players going in the top couple rounds have that in them. Like, realistically, I think you can make the argument down to like a Kempe, like sort of this tier drop off. I am there's a few guys that I'm just a bit lower on, and I think it's pretty inconsequential to say like I like Panarin more than Jake Gensel, and kind of maybe going to end up more Panarin than Jake Gensel. Like I don't think that's that big of a deal, but like to take a 0% on a guy for really not much of a reason, I think is kind of foolish in this range, just because of the peak upside. And I will say I've changed my tune a bit on the Brady the Chuck situation. Just his peaks just never really became what you'd need to win $25,000, where like Rantanen, Forsberg, and others were. So I definitely can find the argument against like how a player gets to their peak being a bit more impactful. But I do think that argument in the top 3 rounds is just so much different than taking a guy like you mentioned here in Gabriel Velarde, or taking a guy that I jump up and grab, Marchenko, right? Or, there's a number of guys down in this range that I think if for whatever reason, whatever you're using or whoever you've spoken to or however you want to look at it, if you think that they have, top 20 upside for whatever reason, absolutely. Like I last year tried to keep those guys to 30 to 35%. 65% is a bit difficult just because normally those players will get caught onto over time. Like, but Velarde hasn't. I don't really get it. I get that the rates weren't fantastic, but like, he's a guy that I've continued to grab as well. But I think the problem is it's the same like 4 guys are grabbing him every time around that ADP spot, that it's kind of spreading it out for me a bit. But again, like they're just 2 different arguments to me. Like the argument of taking Marchenko, I'll just use him again because I really do like him a lot, and I went up and grabbed him 15 spots above ADP, or taking, Kaprizov every time over Mikko Rantanen, are just different to me, completely different. And I'm not saying that you couldn't be right, but I'd like to spread that exposure.
Yeah, no, that's
how
I think so. That's not really it's Blender at Roto Grinders talks about this a lot on his podcast, where it's not really it's not really a strategy question. That's like a risk tolerance question, because strategy wise, it doesn't really matter what you're doing, because basically what you're saying now is that if Gabe Velarde, if you're correct about Gabe Velarde, you have many more chances to win. But if you're wrong about Gabe Velarde, well, you've certainly nuked a lot of your teams that say don't have the 3 players you had to have at the wing position, so on and so forth. So like I think with Velarde in particular, you want to make sure that you're also overweight on players like Josh Morrissey, Mark Scheifele, maybe Kyle Connor, though he goes early enough where he doesn't have to have that sort of separator season to really matter in this sort of format. Like obviously I think you would want to be over the field on Kyle Connor, but I think you definitely have to be over the field on Mark Scheifele in this case. If you're saying Gabe Velarde has this sort of season where I have 60% of him and I'm not like licking my wounds as a result, you might as well double down on that and say, let's get the guy who, in order to have that season, has to come along for the ride with him. Josh Morrissey plays a position where it's much easier to separate from the rest of the sort of glut of defensemen just because scoring is lower at the top end. So I think that that's sort of the strategy element of it, that like make sure that you're not super misbalanced as far as how you're distributing your Winnipeg exposure, because the path to him succeeding is very narrow and it runs right through a few players.
Okay, I'm up next, but that's okay. As far as well, that's actually I meant the question from Robana. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm just gonna put this. Hold on, let me make sure this link works. My queue is set. I'm not worried. Give me an extra minute here. Yeah, this is the link to Billy Jones' article. Seemed to have worked. It looks weird though. Someone try to copy and paste that. See if it works. This is a bit of like a overarching view on the Best Puck Classic. Like again, like I think it's a very good like starting point, introduction, some rules and basics, and like why the 3 center, 7 winger, 3 defensemen, 3 goalie is so strong. You can definitely make some variations off it. It's not a problem to do that. But I'd be intentional. I think that's my number one thing of like everything that I would say is always be intentional with what you're doing. Like don't go out of your way to, don't go out of your way to stack, because stacking should be good. Like be intentional about it. As far as the lines, I'm not trusting really any of them right now. The left wing lock was mentioned, daily faceoff, roto grinders. They're all fine, especially in season. But in reality, a lot of this is unknown. So if
Okay.
you're wondering about stacks in general, I'm making videos on it, how I see it shaping out. What are you gonna say? I'll
Are
stop.
we
You're ready to
ready?
talk.
Are we ready for this? People are going to get so mad. It's my first Brent Burns share. The people taking Shane Gostisbehere have lost their damn minds.
I think you're an idiot. I
certainly could be.
I will
but,
probably die on.
man,
I will die on the Shane Gostisbehere hill, unfortunately for me.
yeah.
At least
I feel confident that Brent Burns is going to play 22 minutes alongside Jacob Slavin and will shoot when he gets the opportunity. I just don't think Gostisbehere playing more than 13 minutes a night.
I think you're. I mean, Justin Falk's still on the board. Like, what? I guess you took Aho, but I don't know.
Yeah, like
I don't know.
I mean, I'm gonna have my bags packed of Justin Falk. I don't feel like I need to have 28% of him to feel like that's not. I don't know. People just Brent Burns going undrafted in most situations is a little strange to me. Which like I get it, but I also people are taking Shane Gostisbehere in most drafts. I guess he didn't go in this one, but just doesn't really check out.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's fair. Again, player takey stuff. And again, I'm going to be doing, hopefully Thursday, I'll do my central. No, not central. Oh my God. The Metro for the kind of the correlations I like. I think the next one, I'm going to try to spend a little bit more time on just which player, if I said they don't correlate, that like who they should correlate with. Some of it is guessing, but I do think that a lot of the sites like Daily Faceoff, et cetera, right now are not putting much thought into what they're putting out there, which is fine because like again, we're all kind of guessing, but I think a lot of it is pretty bad. So I get with correlations, it's like what?
Oh no, I wasn't. I didn't realize you had more.
No, with correlations, I would just say there are some that are very obvious and apparent, and some that are.
Yeah, if just focus on taking the best players in each team and you'll be fine. If you're worried too much about the direct correlations, you're probably overthinking it if you're dipping down to players who don't always get drafted. And I know I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth when I said, Bushnevich and Dylan Holloway or whatever. Like, I don't even know if I'll take that pairing. Like, I just took Holloway on a whim sort of deal. But like, generally speaking, the best players, the main correlation you want is that power play one. Like everything else sort of doesn't matter if they're on the same power play one together. So that's like my main takeaway, where it's just like don't worry too much about the line, still blender. But the power plays tend to be more stable. And at the end of the day, you can feel good about having, the two best players on a bad team, and you're still likely to get some element of correlation in there. So don't worry too much about like what daily faceoff says right now.
Speaking of make the bets, the correct choices,
Yeah,
I thought a fun exercise. Why don't we go through each round and we'll do, our Pete Overset, our whoever else. Why don't we just talk about one player in each round that we really like? What?
I think you missed this one. This is what I was gonna get to.
Okay.
I'm just Benson's not draftable. He showed next to nothing offensively from a shot rate perspective. And in this sort of format, even if he does say get like 60 points, which is obviously a huge, huge, huge leap, I'm not even sure he pays off. Like he's sort of like his ceiling is like Matty Beniers from last year sort of deal. And like that's nowhere within the meat of his bell curve. So he could be a really good player this year for the Sabres, but he's more likely to be like the Mark Stone type, where he's not going to be super relevant until he hits that full-fledged superstar. And then he'll be like fringe fantasy useful just because of how limited his shot rate is. And, with that, the goal scoring.
Okay. Are you ready to do? I do agree with everything you just said, and
just
why don't we
keep doing this and you'll make money. Just never forget it. Just be smart.
Okay.
Or be dumb like me. Fade Panarin, fade McKinnon, have 50% Shea Theodore, none of it matters anyway because you build the best teams.
I am a huge Malcolm Adulan fan, but
Yeah.
to assume he's definitely power play one feels
Don't
tough.
do this until
Yeah,
September. Like on September 29th, if he's been the power play one the entire camp, whatever. I can't stop you. Right now though, just like you just what
I
are
mean,
you
well,
missing out on?
people made the case for Addison too. It was like Kalen Addison
I
power play
was
one, and it's like, well, he
did
isn't
he?
going to play.
When did he get traded there though? Did he get
I
traded
don't
there
know.
during training camp? I think he got traded there during camp,
Yeah,
which
it
sort
was
of
during camp. Yeah,
yeah,
and like again, like they traded for him, and it was like, oh, he power play one, and like I wasn't even saying like you couldn't do it, but like let's just learn from
yeah.
past mistakes. Like taking a young player that is, I mean, they went out and they gave up. They got Cody Cece. Like he joined their team. Okay, that is another defenseman to take away minutes from fun players.
Yep. And
So I just, yeah, again, like you're
Wallman,
just looking at
Ferraro.
Wallman, Ferraro, the corpse of Mark
So
Edward Vlasic. I mean, there's just guys that are going to take away minutes from him. It's not even like he couldn't score some points, but like, is he ever going to score in your lineup? If he is, that is a very bad situation.
Yeah. For the audio listener, can you say his name one more time, please?
Shakir Mahakamadulan.
Okay, good job.
Okay, yeah, I know how to read. Okay, can we do my exercise now? It'll be fun. Then we can close out. There's 2 more for the next lobby if you want to jump in, but I don't think we're going to draft on stream, right?
I will be skipping it. I don't care what you do, but I have a loopy cat to tend to. My cat had teeth pulled today, so he's coming out of anesthesia.
Okay, yeah, we'll just 5 more minutes here. I think in the first round, honestly, the guy that I keep taking is Mikko Rantanen as he continues to fall. I think he's really like him and Kaprizov are really the end of a tier. But I guess like it's kind of this situation where once they locked in on him and McKinnon together, like I am willing to say that McKinnon could fall off a little bit on that shooting percentage bender. Like if it comes back to Mikko Rantanen, he could be your David Pastrnak. Like your Nikita, like I don't know, maybe Kucherov's a little bit tough, but I just keep falling in love with Mikko Rantanen.
Yeah, I think in the first round, my favorite pick is Austin Matthews. That's pretty obvious, but I just have more of Kirill Kaprizov because I'm taking Kaprizov at 6, I'm taking him at 7, I'm taking him at 8. Sometimes they get him at 9, and I think that there's an argument you can make that Kaprizov is on the same tier as Kucherov. He's self-contained, meaning he's not reliant on teammates, injury or otherwise, to sort of produce offense. He's a massive producer of offense. I think he's one of there was some cool stat about him. I think he's like one of a handful of players that have like multiple 40-goal seasons in the last 3 years or something like that, where it's like him and 3 other guys. And it's like, yeah, that's the sort of player I want on my fantasy team. And I think that the Wild in general are sort of underrated in this format, like Boldy and Erikssonek and even Zuccarello, I think, is a little bit cheap for the upside week to week that they have. I think Zuccarello is much weaker as far as the full season is concerned, but it's like the playoff weeks, they could do a lot of damage. And you already talked about Gustafsson a bit, and just the team is going to be pretty good. I think, maybe they're not, but that's a bet I'm willing to make.
Okay. Round 2, keep things moving. I think this draft didn't show it, but I think Jason Robertson, especially when you get him at that 19-20 mark, just feels like the easiest click in the world. Like I get the bounce back, feels like a bit of projection, but man, I'm willing to bet on that talent. Like I definitely think this guy has quite a bit more than last year showed. And
yeah,
if they figure it out correctly, I think it only benefits him. Whereas last year, it seemed like they really tried to force Pavelski, and they were just forcing this, square in a round peg with the entire team. And it just kind of played into him not quite getting there. I think this team is a lot of fun. I do understand there's a lot of, cooks in the kitchen. Like, how are they all going to eat? But he's not one that I'm all that worried about.
Go Wild. That's right. GA knows what's up. We'll get to Celebrini, Rabana, don't worry. I don't like anyone in the second round. Like if Jack Hughes makes it to me here, and you already covered Jason Robertson, those are definitely 2 players that I'm willing to snap up in the early second. Once he gets to the late second, though, I'm just sort of like, just shoot me, give me a goalie, I guess. But no, like Reinhardt, Hyman, Marner doesn't really excite me. Caulfield is fine, but I view him as more of a third rounder. I think that's where his ADP sits. And my third
Yeah.
rounder is at Ovi. I don't understand how Ovi goes in the third round. I've made this argument several times on stream, so I'll just keep it going.
Yeah. Kyle Connor for me. Just if you look at this entire tier and you think who is actually has 50 goal upside, I think it's Kyle Connor. He's going to be probably the guy that I end up putting the, most goals in the central bet at 8 to 10 to 1 or whatever it's going to be, because he had, bad last year getting injured. I'm going to be betting on him for sure. So I think he'll end up being one of my highest exposure players, because I've been taking him a bit earlier than most, and he's fallen. And I only think he's fallen because if you click on his tab and he just doesn't look like maybe the player you think he is, but this is definitely a guy that has top 5, I think, shooting kind of percentile in the entire league when healthy, and is going to play with Velarde and Shifley, which I think is just, that's the line. And like, if we think about what got, Forsberg maybe the added boost that he needed, it was the fact that there was no one else to rely on. Like, who else are you relying on in Winnipeg other than Ehlers, who's just not going to have an NHL top quality, like top 6 center? So I think the sky's the limit for Kyle Connor. The role is going to be huge. The minutes are going to be huge. And we know what the rates can be. Like, this is a 3.5 every night shot on goal type of prop guy, because he has 5 shots in him every night. You can make the case for Kempe as well, and obviously Caulfield as more of like
I think Kempe's the 4th rounder, and yeah, Kempe's my guy in the 4th round.
Yeah. Kempe 4th round. I will. I feel like wherever Barzal goes, if we want to call him my 4th round guy, but I love, and again, no, I don't hate Ehlers. I hate that he's going to be on the second line with freaking Nemestikov. Like, it's just so hard for me to see the peak upside with if he's power play 1, yeah, like he's fine, but like without that power play role, like how is he getting there at 5-on-5 without a center? But yeah, Barzal on the other hand, like the Islanders are just going to run through Barzal, Horvat, and whoever they put with him, which last year it was Brock Nelson. They picked up Duclair. I think there's a lot of talent there. So I'm really excited about him. You have a guy in the 5th?
Probably Eichel. I don't have enough of him, but I think he's pretty singular talent-wise as well.
Yeah.
And the team around him, I think, is set up to be really, really solid. Everyone's super cheap. Just, Eichel's obviously the first guy off the board. They lose Marchessault, so there's going to be a value guy who slots in there during training camp, or they're going to make a trade still. You've got good D options in Hannafin and Theodore to pair with him. Eden Hill makes a lot of sense in that. Like, it's very easy to see Vegas just in a general sense being undervalued. And I think Eichel is chief among them because just of his goal scoring prowess and his full sort of complement of skills offensively.
Yeah. I probably will have, like, if we look at I was Jack Eichel, I'm going to have like the most, what's the right term? CLV, is that what they call it? Yeah, clothing line value. Yeah. CLV, because every time I'm in a winger laden, smart sharp draft, I just get Jack Eichel at like 60, and I just sit there just laughing maniacally. I absolutely love Jack Eichel. I have Jordan Kyver's my guy. Watch my video. We can keep it moving. 6th round. I hate everybody but Kevin Fiala. I mean, I love Konechny too, but like I love Fiala. I feel like I've only talked about wingers.
Yeah.
I don't like any other positions.
Jarvis, I think for me, if that ADP is true, he might be a 7th rounder. I don't know. I don't care, but let's keep it going because I do want to get out of here.
Okay, we'll just say things quickly, and then we'll just mention Celebrini because I think he's a little bit early, but we'll get to it. Honestly, Sider, I think in the 7th. I mean, he went a little bit early here, but I kind of like him right in that 80s range quite a bit.
Yeah, certainly not where my head was going. But yeah, let's say, I mean, I guess if I just said Jarvis, I think Aho is the smashing value too at 82.
Yeah.
Versus the players he goes around, I think he's a better goal scorer than all these guys, and I don't think he gives much up, like in terms of assists or peripherals. So, yeah, ideally Aho Eichel feels like a pretty good center room.
Yeah, I'll just stick on the D train though and go with Zach Werenski. I think Werenski and Sider are two guys that I'm kind of like targeting as my first defenseman in when I don't have one, which just because I think there's massive upside, power play role, the shooting, floor stats are great. So I like those two quite a bit.
Round 9. I mean, yeah, this is tough not having a actual whatever. But Darcy Kemper for me in this range, like when I'm almost always in need of a goalie, and if he's there in this round, I just click him. Sometimes I click him in round 8, but I think he's going to be the starter. I don't see a ton of paths to him not getting those 45, 50 starts that you look for in your goalie. I think the Kings are going to be another team that's very good in the regular season, despite their regular postseason struggles. And they're a team that gets there defensively. It's not like they're winning games 6-5 every night. So I think Kemper could have a really nice season. The return on that Pierre-Luc Dubois trade was obviously disappointing, but I think that's a good sign from like a fantasy angle that like they obviously had to want him to solve their goaltending issues if they're going to move on from a guy who was just such a sunk cost to them in Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Yeah, I'll just say Nico Hischier, and again, that was in my video. But I think if as far as the centers go, it's a pretty big drop off after Kadri, and like Nico Hischier, I do think has just kind of the go to the moon potential with the point production that could exist there in New Jersey. A potential cup team, and he is going to be very, very, very involved if they end up getting there. Next round, I believe I know your guy's going to be Michkov, but could be Gunther. Well, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think Gunther honestly belongs in the round after that, but yeah, Michkov is certainly a guy that I'm going to have a ton of as well. It seems pretty apparent to me that he's going to be playing with Tippett and Morgan Frost, at least to start things. And a lot of people I think are afraid of John Tortorella. But I don't really think that that's going to be a huge issue. Michkov has been ridiculously productive against men in the KHL. He shoots an absolute truckload. We're not going to be struggling to pick up 4 weeks from him. And I think his upside is truly Kucherov-ish. Just as far as his assists, his playmaking, like he's just a phenomenal player.
That is the comp, but it might take a little bit of time.
He is a point per game player in the KHL at age 18. Like, it's not far fetched to say put him with Tippett and like actually develop some chemistry that like they could nuke the playoffs or something like that.
I took him with just for I don't know. It's hard to know right now. But him,
sure. He's the best players on the team. Don't worry too much about the specifics.
All right.
No. I'm making that clear. I'm not saying don't take him with Konechny. Like, who knows? I think that's more likely to Tippett's involved there. But like, I have no problem taking him with Konechny.
And it's funny how I think it didn't work perfectly, but I kind of love the Byfield with Fiala and the whoever with Michkov whenever it comes up, just because Byfield probably actually goes to center. And I wonder if that's not with Fiala. I mean, again, we'll get more confirmation later on, but that's my projection. I love that.
Yep. Totally how I'm projecting it.
Yes. So next round, I'll go to a center, I guess. Like, I'll just say Bo Horvat because I already said Barzal, and that's a pairing I'm absolutely in on. Anything for you here?
Yeah, I mean, I do like Toffoli here. I think Celebrini is going to start getting more and more expensive, and obviously center is just a much deeper position. But them being pretty close together does not make a ton of sense to me because I think if Celebrini's good, Toffoli is only better than I don't really see a world where Celebrini's outproducing Toffoli, and the fact that Toffoli's a winger and that the position is shallower and the EDPs are pretty similar, to me, it basically says that Toffoli's the better way to bet on Celebrini being good. I have no problem taking Celebrini as your last guy in the center room, but I'm almost always taking him with Toffoli just because, again, I don't really see a world where Celebrini's a guy you want to have without Toffoli just sort of going along for the ride. There's a very clear A-B there, just as far as their top line, two alphas. You could very well see them sort of leverage each other pretty well. I'm going to do some more work with the college stats that we have available. The site that I use to get prospect stats doesn't update anymore because I got hired by a team. So I need to do that manually. I just haven't done it yet with all the best puck stuff going on manifesto wise. But now I'm sort of digging into the players and we'll have more refined takes. But right now, Celebrini is totally fine to draft. I'm probably not taking him without Toffoli, though, in all honesty.
Yeah. Yeah, I think honestly, I think that's the perfect way to put it into. It's like, because number one, I think comparatively to a lot of these other centers, it's hard to get there, and we've seen it time and time again with guys like Jack Hughes that come in their rookie season and they just take time to cook. And Jack Hughes may have been in a better situation because it'd be hard to say that they're in a worse situation than San Jose that going into next year. As I kind of mentioned, they are the longest cup odds by a decent margin. Like, it's just really hard to see it coming through. But like, I think he's definitely draftable. It's just, this is tough.
Yeah, we will do specific episodes, specific write-ups about these prospects with more information as we get closer to the season and have training camp details and whatnot. So don't worry. If you want to know on these guys, we got you covered. Just not fully fleshed out takes just yet. This early in the game.
But we can rattle off a couple of these. I mean, I know Cutter's one for you. I mean, Velarde, we don't have to go too much into detail. I'm still drafting Forsling. I think this is kind of getting to a point where he's getting expensive enough to where I'm starting to like other guys a little bit more. I took him here. I don't know. But other than, I just, honestly, I knew he wasn't getting back to me with the auto drafter, and I just wanted to lock up defense, and I thought Marchenko would get to me. I think Marchenko is going to land somewhere in this range once all the news comes out, once everyone's kind of seeing he's with Gaudreau, he's with Monahan. He's going to move up to the 15, 14 kind of area. So I don't mind drafting him there now because I think we'll get there. I would almost never have done this, but again, I knew that COD wasn't going to take Vladar because he was auto drafting, and I saw that the turn already took his third goalie, so I waited. But Mason McTavish is definitely one of my favorite clicks in the last round. Just, I think that has massive upside. Like, the team around him is better. If he's on that top power play, there's spike potential. I am getting nervous. I'm getting too much of him now. And then, anyone else? I know Schmaltz is a really good call. I didn't know if you wanted to mention anything about him.
Yeah, no. It's strange yet again to see Keller sort of elevate up to this ADP where he goes right now, and to have what seems to be his locked-in line mate in Nick Schmaltz just not alongside him. Schmaltz has flashed the upside before. He's obviously not as good as Clayton Keller, but I think that if he stays top line, top power play, the team's going to get better, and I think that he's a beneficiary of that.
Okay. Anyone else you want to mention there?
No, just shout out GA taking Tyler Seguin. That Harley Seguin power play 2 stack in the playoffs might be what you need.
A bold strategy. I hope it pays off. This was a really good draft. I felt like most teams did. Obviously, this auto drafter completely died. I thought this was a really good draft, though.
I do want to get out of here, though, because I can tell my cat's super uncomfortable, and I want to get him out of his cage. Close
this out, and I will put the intro back on because I want to play it again.
Sure. So we will be back next week, every Tuesday up until the start of the season, with your best puck drafts. Join the Discord, Morningscape Podcast. DM us on Twitter. I'm at Fake Moods. DJ's at DJ_Mitchell94. If you want to get in the Discord, we can pop you the link. It's all free. But until then, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. DJ's posting content on there that's not just a live stream, so make sure you check that out. And subscribe to my newsletter, moods.beehive.com, linked in the description. Where you're listening to this, we're watching. But that'll be where I sort of do my season preview stuff and some more player takes and more stuff going. So very much looking forward to getting into September and getting some actual, pucks hitting the ice and training camp and everything news-wise. So, DJ, anything else?
My Atlantic Division video is up. My top 10 risers video is up, and I will have my next video, I believe, should be out on Thursday, going over the Metro, going over kind of the top player at ADP right now and who you should draft with them, who you should avoid, and who you should kind of be a bit weary on. And I plan on going a little bit more into You didn't take Panarin though. Like this is fine with this and kind of saying like Kreider and Zibanejad are fine, but like whatever, I don't like them. Out. I'm gonna put the intro thing back on because I like it and I made it today and I'm proud of myself.
Alrighty, go watch DJ stuff. Thank you all for tuning in. From Doug, from DJ, from myself. Have a good best ball drafting season, everyone, and we will see you.